On Father's Day, my daughter gave her father-in-law a $13,000 cruise ticket paid for with my money, and I got a $2 lottery ticket. She laughed, saying, "If I'm lucky, half of it is mine." I smiled, but my heart was boiling with anger. That ticket brought me $120 million, and I taught her a lesson she will never forget. Instead of half the amount, she got what she deserved. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. Dad, here's your gift. If you win, remember half is mine. Carrara's voice cut through the Father's Day dinner atmosphere as she tossed the lottery ticket across my dining table with that familiar smirk. I caught the crumpled paper, my weathered fingers smoothing it against the tablecloth. $2. The numbers blurred slightly as I stared at them, trying to process what had just happened. Very thoughtful, sweetheart. I managed, forcing a smile. This is— Oh, but wait! Cara interrupted, her voice rising with theatrical excitement. I haven't given Eric his gift yet. She reached behind her chair and produced an elegant gift box, the kind that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. The ribbon alone looked expensive, shimmering under my simple dining room light. Eric straightened in his chair, his perfectly pressed shirt catching the afternoon sunlight streaming through my small windows. My daughter's father-in-law had the kind of confident posture that came from never worrying about money. These, Cara announced, lifting the cruise tickets from their silk-lined box, cost $13,000. Eric deserves the best for everything he's done for our family. The weight of the lottery ticket in my hand suddenly felt microscopic. I watched Eric examine the tickets with satisfaction. His manicured fingers traced on the gold embossing. Now this is what I call a proper gift, Cara, Eric said, his voice carrying that particular tone of approval reserved for expensive things. His eyes met mine across the table. Your father taught you well. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Other family members shifted uncomfortably, suddenly finding their plates fascinating. My sister Margaret cleared her throat while my nephew Tommy studied his hands. Dad always said, "Actions speak louder than words," Cara replied, her laugh bright and sharp. She glanced at Eric, and something passed between them, a look that made my chest tighten. Some people show love through grand gestures. Others— She gestured vaguely at my lottery ticket. I held the paper steady, though my hands wanted to shake. I appreciate the thought, Cara. Really? Oh, it's just a little joke, she said, waving dismissively. But seriously, if you hit the jackpot, I expect my cut. I paid for it, after all. Eric chuckled, the sound low and satisfied. Perhaps next year Stephen will surprise us all with something more substantial. The afternoon sunlight highlighted every uncomfortable expression around my table. Margaret's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Tommy's wife, Sarah, studied the family photos on my walls with sudden intensity. Even my grandson Jake, usually buried in his phone, looked up with confusion. These cruise tickets, Eric continued, fanning them out like playing cards, represent 2 weeks in the Mediterranean, first-class accommodations, private balcony, all meals included, the kind of experience that creates lasting memories. I nodded, my throat tight. Sounds wonderful. It is wonderful, Cara agreed. Eric has always been there for us financially. He helped us buy our house, paid for Jake's private school, even covers our country club membership. He's earned something special. The lottery ticket felt like it might disintegrate in my grip. I remembered the double shifts I'd worked at the garage, the overtime hours fixing transmissions and rebuilding engines, all to pay for Kara's college education. The nights I'd fallen asleep in my chair, too tired to make it to bed after working 16-hour days to afford her textbooks. "Well," I said quietly, "I hope you both enjoy the cruise." "We will," Eric said, slipping the tickets back into their box with ceremonial care. This is how families should treat each other, with generosity and respect. The conversation moved on, but I remained focused on the tiny piece of paper in my hands. $2, the same amount I used to give Kara for ice cream when she was 7, back when that small gesture could light up her entire face. After dinner, they left as quickly as they'd come. Car doors slammed outside, engines started, and voices faded into the evening air. I remained at my table, still holding the lottery ticket, watching the last of the sunlight disappear from my dining room. The house settled into the familiar quiet of my solitary life. I looked around at the family photos on my walls, the modest furniture I'd bought piece by piece over the years, the careful decorations I'd set up for a Father's Day that was already over. The lottery ticket lay beside my empty coffee cup, forgotten in the morning light filtering through my kitchen window. I stared at my laptop screen, numbers swimming before my eyes as I reviewed my monthly bank statement, a ritual I'd maintained for 40 years. First as a young father counting every penny, now as a careful retiree protecting what little I had. My finger traced down the list of transactions: utility bills, grocery store purchases, the modest amount I'd spent on Father's Day dinner ingredients. Everything accounted for, everything expected, until I reached a line that made my coffee grow cold in my mouth. Premium travel services, 136 upward 3. I blinked, certain I'd misread. The amount stared back at me unchanged. My hands trembled as I referenced the date with my calendar. 1 week ago, Thursday, I'd been nowhere near a travel agency. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Kara still had authorized access to my account, a precaution I'd set up years ago when her mother died, in case of emergencies. I'd forgotten about it completely. My phone felt heavy in my shaking hands as I dialed her number. Each ring echoed in my quiet kitchen, mixing with the sound of my own heartbeat. "Hello, Dad." Her voice carried that particular tone of bored politeness she used when I interrupted her busy life. "Kara, I'm looking at my bank statement." I tried to keep my voice steady. "There's a charge for over $13,000 from premium travel services." Silence, then a laugh, light and dismissive. "Oh, that I bought Dad Eric his cruise. He deserves something nice for once." The words hit me like a slap. You took $13,000 from my account without asking." "I didn't take anything, Dad. I used family money for a family gift." Her tone shifted, becoming slightly defensive. "You wouldn't have spent it anyway. It's just sitting there." "Kara, that's theft." My voice broke on the word. "You stole from me. It's not stealing when it's family money," she snapped. "Eric has always been there for us financially. He helped us when we needed it. This is just returning the favor." I gripped the phone tighter. "I'm your father, Kara. I raised you. I worked double shifts to pay for your college. Your and Eric helped us both move beyond that." She interrupted. "He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, to live well, to give meaningful gifts instead of." She paused, and I could hear her dismissive sigh instead of lottery tickets. The cruelty in her voice left me speechless. This was my daughter, the little girl who used to fall asleep in my lap while I read her bedtime stories, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder when her mother died, the young woman who'd once called me her hero. "Dad, are you there?" "I'm here," I whispered. "Look, I know you're upset, but think about it rationally. Eric earned this. He's successful. He's contributed to our family's well-being. He deserves recognition for everything he's done. And what about everything I've done?" Another paused. When she spoke again, her voice was colder than I'd ever heard it. "You did what fathers are supposed to do." Eric went above and beyond. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, the dial tone echoing in my empty kitchen like a funeral dirge. My hands shook as I set it down. The same hands that had held her as a baby, taught her to ride a bike, applauded at her graduation. I walked to my nightstand and grabbed the lottery ticket, the $2 joke she'd thrown at me like scraps to a dog. Even this pitiful gift had been bought with my own stolen money. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. Instead, I crumpled the ticket in my fist and marched to the kitchen trash can. The paper made a satisfying thud as it hit the bottom, joining the coffee grounds and empty cans that represented my simple, apparently worthless life. The house felt smaller suddenly, the wall closer together. I needed air, needed to move, needed to be anywhere but in this place where my daughter's betrayal echoed off every surface. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, my legs carrying me down the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sounds of suburban life. Lawnmowers starting up, children playing, neighbors calling greetings across fence lines. Mrs. Patterson waved from her garden, her arthritic hands gentle with her tomato plants. "Beautiful morning, Stephen." "Yes, it is," I replied automatically, though the day felt anything but beautiful. I walked past the Henderson house where Tom was teaching his grandson to throw a baseball. The boy's laughter carried on the breeze, pure and uncomplicated. I remembered teaching Kara the same way, her small hands gripping the ball with determination, her face bright with joy when she finally made a perfect throw. When had that changed? When had my love become insufficient, my life something to be ashamed of? The questions followed me down Maple Street, past the corner market where I'd bought Kara candy as a child, past the park where she'd played on summer afternoons. Every memory felt tainted now, viewed through the lens of what she'd become. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe Kara had reconsidered. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done. "Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas. Kay." I stopped walking, read the message again, then a third time, "when we can," as if $13,000 was pocket change, as if my financial security was negotiable, as if I should be grateful for the possibility of eventual repayment. The phone rang before I could respond. My sister Margaret's name appeared on the screen. "Stephen, are you okay? Kara called me. Said you were upset about some money thing. She stole $13,000 from my account." "Margaret." The words came out flat, emotionless to buy her father-in-law a cruise. Silence. Then she what? She still had access to my account. She used it to buy Eric a $13,000 cruise for Father's Day. She gave me a $2 lottery ticket and told me half of the winnings were hers. "Jesus," says Stephen. "Are you sure? Maybe there's some mistake." She admitted it, said it wasn't really stealing because it was family money. I laughed bitterly. She said Eric deserved it because he's been generous to them. Unlike me, apparently. Margaret's voice softened with the kind of sympathy that made my chest ache. "Stephen, I'm so sorry. I had no idea she'd become so. I don't even know what to call it." "Cruel," I said simply. "She's become cruel." We talked for a few more minutes, Margaret offering to come over to call Kara herself, to help however she could. But there was nothing she could do. Nothing anyone could do. My daughter had shown me exactly what I meant to her, and no amount of intervention could change that truth. I walked home slowly, my legs heavy with exhaustion that had nothing to do with physical exertion. The house felt different when I entered, smaller, shabier, marked by the kind of poverty that comes from being seen through someone else's dismissive eyes. The trash can in my kitchen held the crumpled lottery ticket, a reminder of the joke that had started this whole nightmare. I stared at it for a long moment, remembering the weight of those $2 in my hand, the laughter in Carrara's voice as she tossed it across the table. Tomorrow, I would call the bank. I would revoke her access to my account, take the steps I should have taken years ago. But tonight I would sit in my quiet house and mourn the daughter I'd lost. The relationship that had died somewhere along the way without my noticing. The lottery ticket remained in the trash, forgotten and worthless, while I grieved for something far more valuable that I'd already lost. But the next morning arrived with the kind of brutal clarity that follows a sleepless night. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee growing cold, as I stared at the bag's phone number written on a piece of paper. My hands felt steady for the first time in 24 hours. First National Bank Customer Service. This is Rebecca. How can I help you? I need to revoke authorized access to my account. I said, someone has been making unauthorized purchases. The conversation was surprisingly simple. Rebecca's voice carried professional sympathy as she walked me through the process. Within 15 minutes, Kara's access was terminated. New security measures were in place, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the solid certainty of protecting myself. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Mr. Woods? No, that covers it. Thank you. I hung up and looked around my kitchen with new eyes. The modest space felt different. Not shabby, but honest, clean, mine. My gaze fell on the trash can, and I remembered the lottery ticket lying crumpled among the coffee grounds. The $2 joke that had started this whole mess, purchased with my own stolen money and thrown back at me like I was some kind of charity case. I walked over and stared down at the crumpled paper. Even this pathetic gesture had been bought with money taken from my account without permission. The irony was almost laughable. She'd stolen from me to buy me a gift, then claimed half the potential winnings. With sudden decisive anger, I grabbed the ticket and smoothed it out on my counter. The numbers stared back at me. At 074, 233542, Powerball 18. I memorized them. These digits that represented everything wrong with my relationship with my daughter. Then crumpled the paper again and threw it back in the trash with more force than necessary. The morning stretched ahead of me, empty and quiet. I needed to move, needed to clear my head, needed to be somewhere other than this kitchen where yesterday's betrayal still echoed off the walls. I grabbed my jacket and headed outside, letting my feet carry me down the familiar streets of my neighborhood. The morning air was crisp, filled with the sounds of honest work. Lawnmowers starting up, children playing, neighbors calling greetings across fence lines. Mrs. Patterson was in her garden again, her weathered hands gentle with her roses. She looked up as I passed, her smile warm and genuine. "Morning, Stephen. You're out early today." "Couldn't sleep," I said, pausing at her fence. "Thought a walk might help." She nodded knowingly. Sometimes the best thinking happens when your feet are moving. My herald used to say that. Her late husband had been a good man, a mechanic like me, who'd worked with his hands and treated people with respect. The kind of man who understood that character mattered more than bank accounts. He was right about that, I said. I continued walking past the Henderson house, where Tom was washing his car with his grandson's help. The boy was more interested in splashing water than cleaning, but Tom didn't seem to mind. Their laughter carried on the breeze, uncomplicated and pure. 2 blocks down, I passed the corner market where I'd bought carrot candy as a child. The owner, Mr. Chen, was arranging fruit in his window display, each apple and orange placed with care. He'd been here for 30 years or was, serving the neighborhood with quiet dignity, never getting rich, but never compromising his principles either. These people understood something Kara had forgotten, that there was honor in honest work, in treating people with respect, in building relationships based on something more substantial than financial gain. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe Kara had reconsidered. Maybe she'd realized what she'd done. Dad, I talked to Eric about the money situation. He thinks you're overreacting. It's not like you needed it for anything important. We'll pay you back when we can. Maybe for Christmas. K.I. stopped walking, read the message again, the casual dismissal of my financial security, the assumption that $13,000 was somehow unimportant to me, the vague promise of eventual repayment. It all crystallized into a moment of perfect clarity. This was who she had become. This was what I meant to her. I deleted the message without responding and kept walking. The familiar streets of my neighborhood wrapped around me like a comfortable blanket, filled with the sounds and sights of people living honest lives. Whatever happened next, I would face it on my own terms, with my dignity intact. The trash can in my kitchen held the crumpled lottery ticket, forgotten and worthless, while I walked toward whatever came next, with my head held high. 3 days had passed since I'd taken control of my finances. 3 quiet days of morning coffee, simple meals, and the kind of peace that comes from knowing you've done the right thing. I was stirring scrambled eggs in my cast-iron skillet when the phone shattered the silence with its shrill demand for attention. Dad, what the hell did you do to my card? Kara's voice exploded through the receiver before I could even say hello. It was declined at Nordstrom. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? I set down my spatula carefully, my hand surprisingly steady. I removed your access after you stole $13,000 from my account. I didn't steal anything. Her voice pitched higher, that familiar tone she'd used as a teenager when caught in a lie. That money was for family, for someone who actually contributes to this family. You didn't ask permission, Kara. You just took it. Through the phone, I could hear the rustle of shopping bags, the distant hum of mall traffic. She was calling me from the parking lot of whatever expensive store had just humiliated her. I was standing there with an $800 handbag. Dad, $800. The sales associate ran my card 3 times before telling me in front of everyone that it was declined. Other customers were staring. I looked like some kind of common person who can't afford her purchases. The way she said common person made my chest tighten, as if being unable to afford 800 handbags was some kind of moral failing. I'm sorry you were embarrassed, I said quietly, but that doesn't change what you did. What I did? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. What I did was treat Eric with the respect he deserves, something you've never learned to do. I carried the phone to my kitchen table, settling into the same chair where I discovered her theft just days before. Kara, I raised you. I worked 60-hour weeks to put you through college. I thought that counted for something. And Eric helped us move beyond all that, she snapped. He's shown us what real success looks like, what it means to be generous, not sitting on piles of money like some kind of miser. The accusation hit like a physical blow. 40 years of careful saving, of choosing generic groceries and driving used cars so I could provide for my family. And this was how she saw it. "You're going to regret this decision, Dad." Her voice dropped to a tone I'd never heard before, cold and calculating. "You think you can humiliate me publicly and just walk away? You think there won't be consequences?" "Kara, I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm protecting myself." "No, you're being selfish and petty and cruel." Each word landed with deliberate precision. "But I won't let you get away with it. I have friends, Dad. People who matter in this community. People who understand what family loyalty actually means." The line went dead with a sharp click that echoed in my quiet kitchen. I set the phone down and returned to my eggs, but they'd gone cold in the pan. Even reheated, they tasted like ash. That evening I tried to distract myself with television, flipping through channels without really watching. A nature documentary about wolves, a cooking show featuring elaborate desserts I'd never attempt, a news program discussing economic policies that felt irrelevant to my small world. My tablet sat on the coffee table, unopened since yesterday. I'd been avoiding social media, avoiding the temptation to check on Kara's life from a distance, but curiosity finally won. I opened Facebook and scrolled through the usual collection of neighbor updates and distant cousin vacation photos. Then I saw it. Kara's post sat at the top of my feed, accompanied by a photo of her looking devastated, her eyes red, rimmed with carefully applied tears. Having to write this breaks my heart, but I need support right now. My father has decided to cut off my access to what has always been our family money. After years of me being there for him, helping him through Mom's death, managing his affairs when he couldn't, he suddenly decided I'm not worthy of his trust. All because I bought Eric, who has been more of a father figure to our family than anyone, a gift with money that was sitting unused in an account. I never thought my own father could be so selfish and cruel. I'm honestly questioning everything I thought I knew about the man who raised me. The post had 47 likes and 23 comments. I scrolled through them, my stomach churning with each sympathetic response. "OMG, Kara, I'm so sorry. Older people can become so paranoid about money. Your father should be grateful to have such a caring daughter. This is awful. Eric is such a wonderful man. He deserved that gift. Your dad is being ridiculous. Family money should benefit the whole family. Hang in there, honey." I closed the tablet and sat in my darkened living room, listening to the house settle around me. Somewhere in my bedroom, forgotten in the kitchen trash, lay the crumpled lottery ticket that had started this whole mess. The $2 joke that had revealed the truth about what I meant to my daughter. The following evening found me in the same chair, remote control resting loosely in my palm as I surfed channels with no particular purpose. The social media aftermath had been consuming my thoughts all day. Neighbors who suddenly avoided eye contact. The cashier at the grocery store who'd looked at me with newfound suspicion. Kara's narrative was spreading, and I was losing the battle for my own reputation without even fighting. Click. A cooking show featuring complicated French pastries. Click. A sitcom from the 90s that I'd seen countless times. Click. Local news discussing city budget issues. Click. The state lottery drawing program. Good evening, Ohio. Welcome to tonight's Powerball drawing, where we have a rollover jackpot of 12 million. I almost changed the channel, but something about the announcer's cheerful voice made me pause. Maybe it was the absurdity of it. Here I was being called a greedy miser for protecting my modest savings, while someone was about to win more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. Tonight's winning numbers are The announcer's voice took on that ceremonial tone reserved for menace occasions. 7:14, 23:35, 42, and the Powerball is 18. My hand froze on the remote. Those numbers sounded familiar, disturbingly familiar. I grabbed a pen from the coffee table and scribbled the numbers on the back of an envelope as the announcer repeated them. 7, 23:35, 42, Powerball 18. My heart began racing before my mind fully caught up. I knew those numbers. I'd seen them recently, stared at them long enough to memorize them in a moment of anger and irony. The lottery ticket, the crumpled piece of paper I'd thrown away in disgust 3 days ago. I stumbled to the kitchen, my legs unsteady beneath me. The trash can sat innocently by the counter, filled with the detritus of solitary living, coffee grounds, empty cans, food scraps. I plunged my hands into the mess, digging through banana peels and soggy paper towels, searching for a small piece of paper that might change everything. My fingers found it near the bottom, stuck to the side of a yogurt container, the lottery ticket, stained with coffee grounds and wrinkled beyond recognition, but still readable. I carried it to the kitchen sink and carefully rinsed off the worst of the debris, my hands shaking as I unfolded it. 7, 14, 23, 35, 42, Powerball 18. Perfect, every single number matched. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair, staring at the damaged ticket in disbelief. The $2 joke that Kara had thrown at me like scraps to a dog. The gift she'd bought with my own stolen money, and then claimed half ownership of the piece of garbage I'd discarded in anger. It was worth $120 million. I called the lottery hotline with trembling fingers, following the automated prompts to verify the winning numbers. The mechanical voice confirmed what I had already knew. The winning Powerball numbers for tonight's drawing are 7, 14, 23, 35, 42 with Powerball 18. The jackpot amount is $120 million. I hung up and looked around my modest kitchen with new eyes. The outdated appliances, the worn linoleum floor, the simple table where I ate my solitary meals. All of it suddenly felt surreal, like a movie set about to be struck and replaced with something entirely different. The lottery ticket lay on my table, still damp from its rescue from the garbage, still creased with the force of my angry disposal. Kara's voice echoed in my memory. If you win, remember half is mine. I barely slept that night, alternating between checking the lottery ticket for the 100th time and staring at my ceiling in disbelief. By morning, I'd convinced myself it had to be a mistake, a hallucination brought on by stress and social isolation. But the numbers remained the same, and the ticket, despite its journey through my garbage, was undeniably real. The Ohio Lottery Commission offices in downtown Columbus were more impressive than I'd expected. Glass and steel reaching toward gray March clouds with security guards and an atmosphere of serious business. I clutched the ticket in a plastic sleeve, my palms sweating despite the cool morning air. Mr. Woods? The lottery official, a woman named Janet Chen, smiled professionally as she examined my betel ticket. This is quite a story. Found it in your trash. Threw it away in anger, I admitted. My daughter bought it as a Father's Day gift, but the circumstances were complicated. Janet nodded without judgment, placing the ticket under some kind of specialized scanner. We see all kinds of situations here. The important thing is verification, and I'm happy to tell you, Mr. Woods, that this is indeed a winning ticket. The words seemed to echo in the sterile office space. I gripped the arms of my chair, afraid I might float away. However, Janet continued, our verification process takes 48 hours for prizes of this magnitude. We need to confirm the ticket's authenticity through multiple security measures, prepare the legal documentation, and arrange for the payout process. I nodded numbly, signing papers and providing identification, barely processing the cascade of information about taxes, payment options, and publicity procedures. By the time I left the lottery office, my head was swimming with figures and legal terminology. But one fact remained crystal clear. I was worth $120 million. The drive home passed in a blur of familiar streets that suddenly felt foreign. Everything looked the same. The corner grocery store, Mrs. Patterson's rose garden, the elementary school where Kara had learned to read. But I felt like an alien visitor observing someone else's life. I'd been home less than an hour when Kara's car screeched into my driveway. She burst through my front door without knocking, her face flushed with excitement and determination. Dad, I heard about the lottery. Some woman at the office knows someone who works at the commission. She saw your name on the winner's list. I remained seated at my kitchen table, the official lottery paperwork spread before me like evidence in a trial. Hello, Carrara. Don't hello me. She practically vibrated with energy. Do you realize what this means? We're millionaires. Remember what I said? Half is mine. That was a gift, Carrara. My voice came out calmer than I felt. You can't take back a gift. Her expression shifted, the excitement giving way to something harder. We had an agreement. Everyone at that dinner heard me say it. Witnesses, Dad. Legal witnesses. You threw that ticket at me like garbage, I said quietly. You bought it with money you stole from my account. It was never about sharing anything. Stole. Her voice pitched upward. I used family money for a family purpose, and now you're trying to cheat me out of what's rightfully mine. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. The little girl who used to climb into my lap for bedtime stories had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize, someone whose first thought, upon hearing of my good fortune, was how much of it belonged to her. The ticket was a gift, I repeated. Whatever your intentions, whatever you said, it became mine the moment you gave it to me. I'll sue you. She slammed her hand on my table, making the lottery papers jump. I'll prove that ticket belongs to me. I'll take you to court and make sure everyone knows what kind of man you really are. And what kind of man am I, Carrara? She paused, her chest heaving with anger. For a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Recognition, maybe, or shame, but it passed quickly, replaced by cold determination, the kind who steals from his own daughter. She stormed out as dramatically as she'd arrived, her parting shot hanging in the air like smoke. I listened to her car engine roar to life and fade into the distance, then looked down at the official documentation, confirming my lottery win. $120 million, more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. And all I felt was tired. I woke to the sound of my phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. 15 missed calls, 12 text messages, and a cascade of social media notifications that made my stomach lurch before I was fully conscious. The first Facebook post appeared at 6:47 a.m., timestamped just as most people were starting their day with coffee and morning news. Urgent. My father has stolen my lottery ticket and is claiming the entire jackpot for himself. This is the same man who cut off my access to family money and publicly humiliated me. The ticket was my gift to him with the clear understanding that winnings would be shared. This is elder abuse in reverse. When elderly people become so obsessed with money, they'll cheat their own children. Please share this post. I need people to know the truth about what's happening. The post included a photo of me from last Christmas, looking serious and somewhat stern in my holiday sweater. Below it, comments were already accumulating like digital wildfire. But Kara hadn't stopped there. Her Instagram featured a tearful video of her sitting in her car, mascara running down her cheeks as she spoke directly to the camera. I don't usually air family business like this, but I'm desperate. My own father has stolen my lottery ticket, literally stolen it, and now he's claiming the entire $120 million for himself. I bought that ticket as a Father's Day gift. I jokingly said, half is mine because that's what you do with family, right? You share. But apparently my father heard that as a legal challenge instead of a daughter's love. Eric had coordinated his own campaign across LinkedIn and Facebook, his posts carrying the weight of professional credibility. Witnessing financial elder abuse is devastating, but reverse elder abuse is equally damaging to families. When elderly individuals become obsessed with money to the point of betraying their children's trust and generosity, we all lose. My wife is heartbroken by her father's greed. The lottery ticket was purchased as a gift with clear verbal agreements about sharing. Yet he claims exclusive ownership. This behavior destroys families and communities. My phone rang again. Margaret. Stephen, what in God's name is happening? My neighbor just called asking if you really stole Carrara's lottery ticket. Social media is going crazy. I explained the situation as simply as I could, but even to my own ears, it sounded complicated. Yes, Kara had bought the ticket. Yes, she'd made jokes about sharing winnings. Yes, I had actually won. No, I didn't believe I owed her anything. But Stephen, Margaret said gently, she did buy it for you. With money she stole from my account, I reminded her. By noon, the story had gone viral in our small corner of the internet. Local Facebook groups buzzed with debates about family loyalty, legal obligations, and moral responsibilities. The neighborhood app next door featured heated discussions about the greedy lottery winner on Maple Street. I made the mistake of reading comments on Carrara's posts. This is disgusting. How can a father do this to his daughter? Lawyers need to get involved. This is theft, plain and simple. I know this family. The daughter has always been so generous and kind. The father has always been weird about money. Team Kara, no way should an old man keep money that belongs to his daughter. Eric's professional network had mobilized. 2. Colleagues from his investment firm shared his posts with serious commentary about family values and financial ethics.